After everything they've been through this season, the New York Islanders are still in the playoff hunt with 12 games to go. But if they don't fix this one big problem, their chances of making the playoffs are next to none. We're going to break that down and talk about it next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you get new episodes as soon as they drop. We've got a lot to discuss today. We're going to talk about one area the Islanders must improve if they hope to make the playoffs. We'll preview tonight's game against the Canucks, and we'll have our weekly farm report on all things Bridgeport Islanders. So lots to discuss on today's show. But we got to start with the biggest problem that the Islanders have. And believe me, everydayers will know there have been plenty of problems that this team has dealt with, whether it's the way the roster is constructed, the injuries, the officiating, plenty of problems. But one problem that killed the Islanders against Columbus and really has killed them all season long remains the power play. The power play is is clicking at 12.1%, which ranks it dead last out of 32 teams in the National Hockey League this year. And if you break down the numbers so far, it's even worse because the New York Islanders have 21 power play goals this season. That is also the lowest number in the league in 173 opportunities with the man advantage. 21 power play goals in 173 chances. But keep this in mind. Out of those 21 power play goals, guess what? Brock Nelson scored one of them. So he's not there anymore. No Islanders player has more than 4 power play goals this year. That's Anders Lee and Kyle Palmieri, tied with 4 power play goals each. We have played 70 games. And again, just to emphasize where we're at, the Islanders have 21 power play goals, and they have allowed 7 shorthanded goals, which places them right now tied for 4th in the league. And just to give you an idea, it ties them with Buffalo, San Jose, and the Utah Hockey Club. So 2 teams that are definitely not making the playoffs and 1 team that is kind of struggling to try to make the playoffs. But when you have your power play in 70 games has only scored 14 more goals than it's given up, you are not going anywhere. And again, going back to the game against the Blue Jackets. And I can reiterate and yell and scream and complain about the questionable call on goalie interference. And, every day, let's just go back and listen to yesterday's show because I spoke about it plenty. But one of the big reasons they lost was that the Islanders went 0 for 3 on the power play against the Blue Jackets and also allowed a shorthanded goal. And think about this, okay? Anders Lee scores to give the Islanders a 3-2 lead late in the period. And the Blue Jackets challenge for goalie interference, and they lose the challenge. So with 47 seconds left in the period, the Islanders have a 1-goal lead after being outplayed for most of the period, and they get a power play for a minute 13 of the third period and the last 47 seconds of the second if they don't score. They didn't even come close. And, you know, every time, all 3 power play opportunities that the Islanders had were costly. The first one could have put them up even more. And, you know, that would have made it essentially a 3-0 game. Then you had the shorthanded goal given up, and that did not help. And, the first goal by Columbus was scored less than 2 minutes after a failed Islanders power play. Everything about the power play just went wrong. And here's what Patrick Waugh had to say about the power play after the game. We didn't do a good job breaking in or setting up in the zone. We didn't do a good job to release the pressure when we had the puck. And we didn't do a good job of competing for pucks. And we didn't do a good job to see our options. In other words, nothing went particularly right on the power play. And it's been an issue all year long. This team has tried a few different things, and maybe they've had, a 2 or 3 game stretch where the power play has delivered a little bit better. But overall, it has been absolutely atrocious. The Islanders do not go to the net. They do not pass the puck well and move the puck well, which when you do that, it forces the penalty killers to chase the puck and get tired. And remember, on the power play, there should always be one player open. So moving when you don't have the puck not only tires out the penalty killers, but it creates time and space so that you can find that open player and maybe even confuse. And Islander fans, we've seen the Islanders do it defensively, not just on the PK, but even at 5-on-5, where 2 Islanders players go behind the goal or 2 Islanders players cover the same man. You do that, you force the penalty killers into those kind of mistakes. That gives you great chances. The Islanders don't do that. They don't shoot the puck enough. They try to pass up good opportunities to get the perfect opportunity. Doesn't work. Don't let the perfect get in the way of the good. And when you shoot the puck and you go to the net, good things can happen. When you don't shoot the puck, it's really hard to score. You might get 2 or 3 good bounces a year where the puck deflects off the, somebody's skate or some fluky thing happens and it goes into the net, an own goal or whatever. But realistically, you need to shoot the puck to score. And this Islanders team doesn't shoot enough. Their passing isn't crisp. It is quick. And it doesn't always have purpose. They're always on the outside, on the perimeter, not going to the net, not screening the goalie enough, not getting rebounds and deflections. And it just ends up killing any chance that this team has of winning hockey games. You cannot be dead last on the power play in this league and expect to make the playoffs. It doesn't happen often. And if you look at the teams with the top 5 power plays in the league, number 1, Winnipeg. Gee, they have one of the best records in the league. Vegas is next. Detroit is 3rd, okay? And they're fighting for a playoff spot, but not in a playoff spot. Then you have Tampa Bay, Edmonton, and Toronto. So 6 of the top 7 power play teams in the league are in the playoffs. And the other team that is not in the playoffs, if the season ended today, is still in the hunt. And, for Detroit, having the 3rd best power play in the league can mask the fact that they're just not scoring as much as you would like. They are 22nd in the league right now in goals scored. And that makes it really hard to win. But the good power play keeps you in the hunt. It keeps you alive. It makes up for the fact that you don't score enough 5-on-5. Well, the Islanders don't score enough 5-on-5 either. The Islanders are presently 27th in the league in goals scored, and they're dead last on the power play. And it just isn't good enough. If you want to make the playoffs, you gotta get me to below average. Get me to 20th. It's not going to happen this year. There aren't enough games left. But if they can be average even on the power play for the rest of the season, their chances of making the playoffs go up dramatically. And here's the other thing. John McLean has been the assistant coach in charge of the power play. And I thought he was going to be let go last year. Didn't happen. This year, again, the power play, historically bad. Not just bad, historically bad. I know John McLean played for Lou Lamoriello in New Jersey back in the day. I know Lou Lamoriello loves his people. Lou previously said that loyalty will not get in the way of winning. I don't like to call for people's jobs. These are human beings with families and in most cases, integrity and hardworking people. But the NHL and professional sports are also a results-oriented business. And when you're not getting the results, and it isn't just, it's not happening this year. I mean, last year, the power play was a little better. It was a lot better, actually. It was 19th. The year before, it was 30th in the league. So 2 out of the last 3 years, the New York Islanders have been in the bottom 3 in the league on the power play. Part of it is personnel. They don't have a sniper. There's no go-to guy on this power play. But part of it is also coaching. And if they are being coached well, they're not listening. So hopefully this changes things in the offseason, that we see not just changes to the roster, but changes to the assistant coaches, because this is killing the Islanders. I can tell you right now, if the power play were 20th in the league instead of 32nd, the Islanders would be in position to make the playoffs as if the season ended today. It has killed this team all year long, special teams. And as much as the goalie interference call hurt the Islanders Monday night against Columbus, the power play hurt them almost as much. And it really contributed to that loss. All right, we've got more to get to on today's show. We've got a preview of tonight's critical home game against the Canucks. We'll have our weekly farm report on all things Bridgeport Islanders. And for our Islanders birthday of the day, a member of the first brother team to play for the New York Islanders, who is unfortunately no longer with us. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. You just realized your business needs to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. I've been in that spot where you need to hire like yesterday. The pressure is on, and every day without the right person is a setback. But that's exactly when Indeed sponsored jobs comes in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about it on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Again, that's Indeed.com/lockedon. Hiring, Indeed, is all you need. Islanders, Canucks, 7:30 tonight, last game of this 4-game homestand. And again, the Islanders, they've gotten a point in each of these games, but you need to rack up the points. This was the easier part of the schedule, and they also were on this home streak here of 4 games. So, out of the first 3, the Islanders are 1-0-2. And that's just not good enough. You got to rack up the points. You got to pocket them and win some of these games against your Calgarys and your Montreals and your Columbuses and now your Vancouvers, because after this, the schedule only gets more difficult. Now, these two teams met way back on November 14th in Vancouver. Islanders won that game by a score of 5-2. And let's face this. The Canucks have, like the Islanders, been on a roller coaster ride. They've lost their number 1 goalie, Thatcher Demko, to injury. He has been replaced when he was out by Kevin Lankinen. Lankinen played well, but he is seemingly starting to tire. We had the drama between Elias Pedersen and JT Miller. Eventually, Miller traded to the New York Rangers. Pedersen still not living up to expectations this year, needs to play better. And the Canucks, in spite of all of their talent, just seem to have been their own worst enemy. No chemistry, problems in the locker room, and they've dealt with injuries. So it's been a disappointing season. And just like the Islanders, the Canucks are fighting for their playoff lives. They have 11 games left. The Islanders have 12, but Vancouver is 33, 26, and 12 this year. That gives them 78 points on the season, and it is going to be a race for them to get into the playoffs as well. Goals scored, they're 23rd in the league. Goals against, 20th. So, again, a little below average in both categories. Special teams, however, have kept Vancouver afloat. The power play is in the middle at 15th in the league, 22.1% success rate. The PK, 5th in the league, 82.5% success rate. And right now, in their last 2 games, they lost to the New York Rangers at Madison Square Garden and then beat the Devils 4-3 in a shootout. So, again, same amount of rest, same amount of time off, and just like the Islanders, Vancouver is going back and forth with, winning games that they probably shouldn't be expected to win and then losing some games that they are expected to win. You look like a great team 1 minute and a struggling team the next, and injuries, again, may be playing a role because Niels Höglander and Elias Pedersen, both out of the lineup as of right now, as if is Philip Cheadle. Noah Juulsen is still on IR, but Pedersen and Höglander, we don't know their availability against the Islanders. We got to see, but it would be a big advantage to the Islanders if those 2 players are unavailable. So the line combinations for the Canucks: Pius Suter centers Jake DeBrusk and Brock Besser on the top line as long as Pedersen is out. Teddy Bluger is the second line pivot. Connor Garland to his left. Jonathan Lekaramaki is the right wing. Former Islanders prospect Atu Ratu centers the third line with Drew O'Connor and Kiefer Sherwood on either side of him. And the fourth line is Niels Amann, Dakota Joshua, and Linus Karlsson. On defense, Quinn Hughes, another one of the talented Hughes brothers, and Philip Roenick are the top pair. Marcus Pedersen and Tyler Myers are the middle pair. And then Derek Forbort and Victor Mancini are the third duo on the blue line. Thatcher Demko and Arturs Silovs were the goalies who dressed for the last game, and we'll see who ends up playing against the New York Islanders. And, against New Jersey, it was Thatcher Demko getting the start. We'll see whether or not in desperation, they continue with Demko or they turn to Silovs. So we'll see. But the Islanders, they need better power play. They need to give a complete effort. And they need, again, I think, to score early and get the Canucks, a team that has a lot of question marks surrounding their attitude this year and their chemistry. If you can get them to doubt themselves early, I think you might be able to pull off the win. And it is vital, because if you look right now how close that wild card race is, a win by the New York Islanders and they possibly could climb into a playoff spot, or very, very close to it. A loss and, they could drop behind 2 or 3 teams before the night is over. It is also, again, as I said, the fourth of a 4-game homestand. And after this, you have, games in Tampa Bay, at Carolina, 2 tough road games coming up this weekend. So the Islanders need to deliver tonight and just be smart in their own zone and just play 60 minutes. You can't win in the NHL with any consistency like the Islanders did against Columbus, where they played one really good period, one pretty bad period, one terrible period, and then they were fairly even in overtime. You can't win that way. Not if you want to make the playoffs. You've got to give a 60-minute effort. And that doesn't mean you are dominating all 60 minutes, but you've got to at least be in the game. The other team's going to get their chances, but you've got to be in the game. So let's see if the Islanders can do it, get on track, and hopefully pull off the win. What's happening down in Bridgeport? It's been a messy season, but can they bounce back? And were they better this past week? We'll have the latest on the Islanders prospects in the AHL on our weekly farm report, plus our Islanders birthday of the day, coming up next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Trade Coffee. If you're like me, your mornings have to start with a good cup of coffee, but I got tired of settling for grocery store brands that just weren't cutting it. That's why I turned to Trade, and let me tell you, this coffee is next level. Trade is the #1 specialty coffee marketplace in the United States, bringing you fresh coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Their experts have taste tested thousands of coffees, curating over 450 amazing roasts. Whether you're new to coffee or know exactly what you like, they'll handpick the perfect match for you. I took their quiz, and in under a minute, they matched me with a roast that was fresh, smelled incredible, and tasted even better. My first bag was a game changer. It had such a smooth, rich flavor, and I could actually taste the difference from my usual coffee. The subscription makes it so easy. No more last-minute grocery store runs or settling for whatever's on the shelf. And if you don't love your first bag, no worries. Trade will replace it for free until they get it just right. Right now, Trade is exclusively offering our members 40% off your first order at drinktrade.com/LockedOnNHL. That's drinktrade, TRADE.com/LockedOnNHL for 40% off your first order. Time now for our weekly farm report as we discuss all things Bridgeport Islanders. Bridgeport only had 2 games this past week since our last farm report, and they actually got off to a good start, beating the Springfield Thunderbirds by a score of 4-1. Chris Terry became only the 12th player in AHL history to record 800 points. Adam Beckman had 2 goals for the Islanders, and Bridgeport ends up with a 4-1 win. And for Beckman, his first multi-goal game with Bridgeport, and he now has 3 goals and 2 assists in his first 6 games, so 5 points. 21 saves for Henrik Tikkanen, and again, a nice, solid win for the Bridgeport Islanders against Springfield. But then the next afternoon, it was the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins And the Islanders fall in this game by a score of 5-2. So just not a good enough performance. Alex Jeffries did get his 11th goal of the season. That gives him 3 goals in his last 8 games. But you need better than that, obviously, for the New York Islanders. And they end up losing this game by a score of 5-2. Chris Terry, congratulations to him on the 800 career points. He has 19 goals and 59 points. The goal total is second on the team. The point total by a large margin is first. Brian Pino next with 22 goals. That leads the team and 42 points. Adam Beckman, 38 points, although a lot of them did not come with Bridgeport. Liam Foudy, 18 goals, 37 points. Samuel Bolduc still leading all defensemen with 34 points, 8 goals, 26 assists. And Alex Jeffries, 11 goals, 26 points in 50 games. But again, the usual suspects, well, let's just say this whole team continues to struggle. And you look at the standings, Bridgeport has 10 games left, and they are 14-41-7. That's a .282 point percentage. Just to give you an idea, right now they are 26 points behind Hartford with 10 games to go. So they are locked in to last place in the Atlantic Division, and hopefully they can improve. And again, and this is something we will address on a future show, this organization needs an overhaul. This week, 3 games coming up for the Bridgeport Islanders. Tonight, Wednesday, a home game, 7 o'clock Eastern time against the Hershey Bears. And then Friday on the road in Rochester against the Rochester Americans at 7:05 Eastern time. And then a Sunday matinee at 4 in the afternoon against the Toronto Marlies. So 3 big games for Bridgeport as they close out the final 10 games of what has been a difficult season, to say the least. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. This was a pretty easy one. Let's see if you got it. Well, basically, Tuesday would have been the 76th birthday, of former Islanders defenseman Jean Potvin, a native of Ottawa, brother, of course, of Dennis Potvin, 5'11", 188 pounds, made his NHL debut with the Kings in 70-71, then went on to play for the Flyers. Islanders traded for him late in the 72-73 season, their first year in the league, knowing that Dennis Potvin was going to be the number 1 pick and that they were going to have that pick, but fearful that Potvin might play in the WHA, so they acquired Jean Potvin to help entice Dennis Potvin to come to the island, and it did work. And Jean Potvin provided them with some really solid play as well. He had a career-high 17 goals and 72 points in 1975-76, could even pitch in at forward on occasion. Played for the Cleveland Barons and Minnesota North Stars briefly in 77-78 and 78-79 before rejoining the New York Islanders, and was a member of the first 2 Stanley Cup teams, then went into the radio booth as a color commentator for many years. Unfortunately, Jean Potvin passed away in 2022 at the age of 72. And he is definitely missed. I did have the privilege of interviewing him for my book, and he was really nice and had some great stories to tell. One of his better games as an Islander, October 25th, 1975, at the Nassau Coliseum, Islanders hosting the Rangers. John Davidson, the goalie for the Rangers, Chico Resch in between the pipes for the Islanders. And in this game, the Islanders scored just 10 seconds into the second period. Jean Potvin and Dennis Potvin set up Brian Trottier. Rick Middleton was in the box for the Rangers. Then, with the Islanders up by a score of 4-0, the Rangers do get on the board. And then our Islanders' birthday of the day, Jean Potvin increases the lead to 5-1. Billy McMillan and Lorne Henning the assist. And then on the power play with Nick Beverly in the box, Jean Potvin scores again. Dennis Potvin and Billy Harris the assist this time. Islanders go on to beat the Rangers by a score of 7-1, 29 saves for Chico Resch, but for Jean Potvin, our Islanders' birthday of the day, 2 goals, 1 assist. He was a +2, and he had 3 shots on goal in this game. His brother Dennis, 2 goals, 2 assists. So the Potvin brothers almost single-handedly crushing the Rangers as the Islanders win this one by a score of 7-1. Jean Potvin, gone but certainly never forgotten, is our Islanders' birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter with local coverage that you love from Locked On. Find the Locked On NHL podcast on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, you can email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You can follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYRVSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game, so join me for some instant insight and analysis. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and of course, let's go Islanders.